Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Tehami and these are the headlines. The Taliban say negotiations are underway to set up an inclusive Islamic government that considers all Afghans. Spokesperson Sohail Shaheen said there is no time for any elections and a new constitution will be drafted once the leadership is selected. Meanwhile, a UN report says the Taliban have stepped up their search and are going door to door for people who worked with the foreign forces. It said they are threatening to kill or arrest family members if wanted individuals do not give themselves up. Pakistan's envoy to Afghanistan, Mehmood Khan, says Pakistan is assisting with Kabul evacuations. In an interview with Indus News, he said the process of evacuation began in a haphazard way, but said all stakeholders must ensure calm and reach an inclusive political settlement. Malaysia's King has picked former Deputy Prime Minister Ismail Sabri Yaqub as the nation's new leader. He will be the 9th Prime Minister and the 3rd national leader since the ousting of Najib Razak in the vote 3 years ago. Those were the headlines and detailed stories. Right after a short break, stay tuned. Welcome back, and now with the news in detail. The Taliban say negotiations are underway to set up an inclusive Islamic government that considers all Afghans. Spokesperson Sohail Shaheen says there is no time for any elections and a new constitution will be drafted once the leadership is selected. This report has the details.
The normalcy seems to be slowly returning in Afghanistan. Shaheen said Afghans need international assistance as they come out of war and destruction. In an interview, he said the country's freedom was restricted under the US 20 years of occupation. The spokesperson expressed pleas for help in terms of restoring various sectors, including health, education and infrastructure in Afghanistan. He also said the nearly $9.5 billion in assets which Washington has frozen belong to Afghans.
So we need to rebuild our country and to create opportunity of employment for our people. And so for that, there is so much need for assistance, other countries' assistance, and also for our own budget to be released to be spent for the benefit of our people.
Shaheen said China can play a big role in rebuilding Afghanistan. He noted the Taliban are committed to not allowing anyone to make Afghanistan a jumping pad for terrorist activities.
Pakistan's envoy to Afghanistan, Mehmood Khan, says Pakistan is assisting with Kabul evacuations. In an interview with Indus News, he said the process of evacuation began in a haphazard way, but said all stakeholders must ensure calm and reach an inclusive political settlement. Earlier, Indus News correspondent Sumaira Khan interviewed Pakistan's ambassador to Afghanistan on the latest situation in the country. Let's watch.
We have with us our envoy, Pakistan's envoy to Afghanistan. He was stuck in different affairs since morning. I could see that he was arranging all the evacuation flights, not just for Pakistani families, not just for Pakistani nationals, but for all the foreigners who are approaching our embassy here in Kabul. It's our main embassy right here, where we are sitting right now with His Excellency. And rest, I can ask him to give us details that whatever is going on right now. I'll ask some questions on political outcome as well, that what is happening politically in Kabul and what is happening diplomatically in Kabul. What is Pakistan's efforts? But the first stage is right now the evacuation thing, which is that we have seen earlier in the day that the scenes are bizarre at the airport of Kabul. People are sitting there waiting for no reason. They don't have any legitimate papers, documents, but they want to leave Afghanistan. Even those who have settled businesses in Kabul, in Afghanistan, it is totally ununderstandable that why they are waiting at the airport and why they want to just leave their own country and to seek asylum in the other foreign countries. So, Sir Mansoor Ahmad Khan, envoy to Afghanistan from Pakistan, sir, we say we welcome you to the special transmission of Indus News we are doing on Afghanistan.
Thank you very much. I am grateful to the team to you and the team of Indus Television for this opportunity, for your visit to Kabul in these circumstances, for providing coverage to your audience, reporting to your audience. In recent weeks, quick advances by Taliban and taking control of provinces, one province after the other, and then their march towards Kabul. On 15th August, the previous government left, and the new government has not assumed, and therefore for past 5-6 days there is practically no government in Kabul. Taliban have taken control of Afghanistan. Taliban are here in Kabul and other provinces. They have maintained security, peace and security throughout Afghanistan, but there has been no announcement of government. Taliban leadership and other political leaders in Afghanistan have been engaged. There have been some meetings, but we have not yet seen an extensive political process for carving out, for charting a future course of action, a future roadmap. So we are waiting at the moment. Our focus, Pakistan Embassy's focus and focus of many other embassies is on humanitarian aspects and mostly the evacuation. A large-scale evacuation is underway. You have seen already, you have described that airport presents a very disturbing picture where thousands of Afghans are blocking all the entrances of airport, and the Taliban people who are managing security there, they have time and again have to resort to aerial firing. But other than that, in the city, the security situation seems to be normal. Our Pakistan Embassy has also been engaged in this exercise of providing assistance to people for evacuation, those who want to leave Afghanistan and go to Pakistan. We have provided this facility to a large number of Pakistanis. Most of the Pakistanis have now gone. About 200 may be left, which will be sent to Pakistan in the next 2 days. We have provided this facilitation to international organizations and their staff, both foreign staff and of their Afghan staff and families. 2 PIA flights are going today. There will be more PIA flights tomorrow and in the coming days. So we hope that this exercise is completed, and we hope that a political stability also is achieved through a process of engagement.
You rightly said that, and as I was discussing the issue with other staff of the embassy as well, you are in a very secure manner, you are providing a secure evacuation plan to the foreign nationals, and those foreign nationals, can we include those from the different nationalities, from different embassies, or they are associated with some UN organizations? What are we speaking about? Like, who are these?
From the beginning, our government at the highest level, Prime Minister Imran Khan directed us that we should provide facilitation to everyone, including the embassies working here and their expatriate staff, diplomats or their Afghan staff and families. Similarly, international organizations like World Bank, Asian Development Bank, there are Asia Society and so many other organizations which have been working here for last 20 years, and they have a sizable number of staff. And now since developments have happened suddenly, so now they want to leave, and we are, because they are kind of showing a distress, so we are trying to help them to go to Pakistan even for temporary relocation. And then there are Pakistanis, and then there are also there is a large number of staff belonging to and their families, Afghan personnel, associated with various media outlets including Reuters, AFP, CNN. So practically we are not discriminating in any way, and we are providing assistance because this is a humanitarian assistance. We are accommodating everyone, but our capacity is also limited, so according to our capacity.
That was my next question, that you mentioned many nationalities, many people hailing to different countries. So why we are not seeing any active effort from other countries? Because obviously for me it would be a moment of pride and honor that my country and my embassy is serving. As a Pakistani, you are serving everyone without any discrimination. But why we don't see any other country actively participating in this evacuation process to at least get their citizens out of this
Unfortunately, this process of evacuation or process of taking the people out of Afghanistan at this moment has happened in a haphazard manner. Right. It has not been orderly, it has not been organized. Many US and many other Western countries' embassies are at the airport where US forces are providing security. But since the airport has been surrounded by a large number of Afghan people who are banking on the calls for evacuation or offers of evacuation.
Who's doing that, sir?
So I think since it has not been done in an orderly manner, and since things happened so suddenly, so I think now international community, in coordination with Taliban and in coordination with all responsible political leaders of Afghanistan, should appeal for a calm, for stability. Afghans should be assured that the political leaders, including Taliban and Afghan political leaders, will be working towards a stable transition, a stable government in future, an inclusive government in future, should assure respect for human rights, including women's rights, and should assure a respect of rule of law. So that kind of messaging, some messaging has already come from Taliban side, but I think more wider messaging needs to come, and the political leaders, and again this involves Taliban political leaders and other countries' other communities' political leaders. They should jointly work towards a stable messaging, a stable assuring people that they are working towards a stable, working towards political stability, long-term political stability, and that will provide assurances to the people in Kabul, to the people outside, that there is no need of showing panic and exodus.
So you are a diplomat right now, sitting in the heart of the Afghanistan. What is Afghanistan looking like right now? Because you are on ground, you are working here. I have just dropped in just 2 days ago, but you were here for many years and you saw what's happening right now. What do you think? What kind of responsibility, a sense of responsibility, should be shown by the other countries? More specifically, if I would name it, because I was just speaking to a person at airport, outside airport, and he said that my evacuation from Afghanistan is America's responsibility, because the war it waged, it wasn't our choice or our wish. They did not ask us. They didn't seek our permission before they waged a war on our country. So this is prevailing. End of the day, do we think that they have to evacuate the entire Afghanistan? Because I'm referring to some statements being made by Western governments that every Afghan is welcome, they are welcome. So who is going to live in this country? Who is going to rebuild it if they keep offering asylums and if they keep offering evacuations to them?
I think for a long time, Pakistan has consistently emphasized that solution of the Afghan issue, durable solution of the Afghan issue is in an inclusive political settlement. There is no military solution and there has to be a political process, and this political process has to be inclusive, intra-Afghan process. Initially, many countries who were in favor of military approach, that military approach didn't succeed. Yeah. But in last few years, we have seen an international consensus in all the countries dealing with Afghanistan, or those countries who matter in Afghanistan. We have seen an international consensus that there is no military solution and we have to work towards an inclusive political settlement. Doha process has made some progress in that direction, but since these developments which happened during this week have now brought us to a new situation, or in a new phase, where I think we need to collectively, the international community needs to demonstrate its firm resolve to help Afghan political leaders to move towards an inclusive political settlement. Inclusive political settlement where human rights are respected, where rule of law is there, and where people are assured, or people have faith in their government and their society for economic development. And that kind of environment will help Afghan people to stay in their country for a better future. While we are ready, we are providing every kind of humanitarian assistance, every kind of, we are assisting people, those who want to go to Pakistan for their temporary relocation. But we also believe that people should work together. Afghans have to work together for an inclusive political settlement. This challenge also represents a serious opportunity. That opportunity is that this historic opportunity has to be seized for the Afghan nation to put an end to the differences, the dispute, the conflict of past 4 decades, and enter into an era of political settlement, negotiated political settlement, and an era of peace, progress, and prosperity.
Thank you very much, sir. But a brief question in the end: are we engaged right now with Taliban or their representatives in Afghanistan to at least tell them that what is happening on ground and what exactly should be done to avoid another humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan?
No, we are very constructively engaged with all shades of Afghan political opinion. We are engaged with Taliban political leadership. We are engaged with Afghan political leaders. I met former President Hamid Karzai, Dr. Abdullah. I have also requested a meeting with Gulbuddin Hikmatyar, and I'll be meeting all other leaders. I am in touch with Taliban's political leadership also. But at this moment, things are in a flux because the Taliban entire political leadership is not yet here in Kabul. So I think there is a need that we should now, by we I mean the Afghan leaders and the international community collectively should now be working towards a stable structure in Afghanistan.
Right. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. And indeed, we are in Kabul. We'll be looking forward to you to have more to share more updates in your presence with the audience and with the viewers. And we also look forward to a future that is acceptable for all the Afghans. And we also pray, I'll be appreciating all your efforts. The entire embassy staff of Pakistan is totally, they are working days and nights. I would definitely mention this office is, it belongs to the His Excellency Mansoor Ahmad Khan, but I have seen them working, all of them, they are working days and nights to make it possible and to provide a secure evacuation to everyone who is approaching the Pakistan's embassy, instead of having discriminations like the other embassies and the other staffers are having towards the Afghan nationals. So this is something that we are very proud of our embassy staffer here. Sir, please convey our regards to them as well.
Thank you very much.
That was Sumaira Khan, Indus News correspondent, talking to Pakistan's ambassador to Afghanistan, Mr. Mansoor Ahmad Khan. And to talk more about this, we are now joined by Lieutenant General Khalid Law, defense analyst, with us. Thank you very much for your time, General Lodi. The Taliban say they have not violated any human rights or harassed anyone after the takeover of Kabul. Then why is there such chaos at the Kabul airport with so many people wanting to flee the country?
Just assume that in any poor country, you tell the people that they can move to Europe or America or other modern countries without visa, with a free ride. Now you tell me how many people will queue up and how many people would like to go. So this is actually that phenomena that you have a free ride, you can go without visa. But many people would like to go, irrespective whether they are afraid of Taliban or they like Taliban or they hate Taliban. So I don't think this phenomena can be totally attributed to the Taliban phenomena or the Taliban regime, because they have yet to actually make a government and start asserting themselves. That has not yet happened. So I take it that way. Yeah, of course, the Western media, they are trying to create a lot of fuss out of it. That if you just go to any African country and tell them that they can go freely to Europe and America and without any fear. So just see how many people would like to go. So I think it is that way.
General Lodi, what would be the options for the Taliban if the international community refuses to recognize an unelected government?
The thing is that they are still going through that phenomena of inclusive government. It is not yet complete, and they will find, I think, this is the most difficult phase of Taliban's takeover as far as Afghanistan is concerned. Of course, the second difficult would be to actually create law and order and to create all that infrastructure which is required for government. So this phase which is now going on, they have promised that it will be an inclusive government. So we'll have to wait and see. I think their attitude, their behavior is all, targeted for these two things. One, to get international recognition, and secondly, to get internal support. So let us see how much they succeed in that. This is I think, a big test of their political understanding and how they manage the thing.
So General Lodi, Amarullah Saleh vowed last week that he would fight back to take Kabul again. Are we looking at a renewed civil war in the near future?
I think if there is a civil war, it will be of a very small, I would say, nature, small volume, because except for Panjshir Valley, everything else is with the Taliban. Of course, there can be problems in various cities, and we should also remember that in the world, some of the very leading countries and leading powers, they are not happy with what has happened, and they would like to create chaos. They would like to even they can have some false flag operations and create rift between Taliban and various factions. So all this is expected. You cannot, for 20 years there was a superpower with their, allies, and there was a regime, artificially placed regime under them, and they were ruling. So the things cannot be so peaceful as we are all expecting, that one day the Taliban take over and second day they will start ruling. It is not possible. As far as Panjshir Valley is concerned, I think it is surrounded from all sides by Taliban. Of course, it's a very difficult terrain. The fighting can take place, but not all Panjshiris want to fight. That also we know. So I think there can be a bit of trouble. It will not be of that volume which cannot be overcome by Taliban.
Lieutenant General retired Khalid Law, defense analyst. Thank you very much for your time at Indus News. We really appreciate that. And for more on this, we are joined by Mr. Shehzad Chaudhary, defense analyst from Islamabad. Mr. Chaudhary, thank you very much for your time at Indus News. First of all, Pakistan is once again faced with the mammoth task of incorporating refugees from Afghanistan. How grave is the threat of anti-Pakistan elements infiltrating into the country under the garb of refugees and creating a law and order threat for Pakistan?
Yes, you have a point there. I think there is a point of concern for Pakistan in terms of refugees, in terms of terrorists or the maleficent intended people making their way as refugees in Pakistan. But luckily, the refugee system that we have created in the sense of giving them cards, or they must have a valid Afghan identity in terms of the passport, and then a valid visa on it for entering Pakistan. That means that the Pakistani embassy in Kabul has had a good look at them before giving them the visa. These two steps at least ensure that those intending harm for Pakistan perhaps may not be able to find entry into Pakistan that easily. Having said that, we also must keep in mind that since the entry and exit points are now fully controlled, and we have a few of those along the border which are now manned by biodata verification. We have trained manpower there for entry and exit control. We have fenced the border along with Afghanistan over a much greater length of almost about 98% of it now. So that really leaves very little option for the people who always intended harm for Pakistan to find an easy entry into Pakistan in the garb of refugees. So while the threat is there, and there will always be some element of it that might just seep through still, we need to keep our guards up. But we are far more better placed than what we were, let's say, about 20 years back when this deluge of refugees began entering Pakistan or made their way into Pakistan.
Mr. Chaudhary, Pakistan dismissed the U.S. mantra of do more regarding Afghanistan and refused to become a partner in Pentagon's over-the-horizon capability. How do you think it will impact Islamabad's ties with Washington in the long term?
Well, I don't think one particular fact or one particular element of a relationship establishes the totality of the relationship. Yes. I don't think Pakistan has ever said no to Pentagon. The Pakistani military and the U.S. military has had a long-lasting relationship and a very vibrant relationship over the last about 6 decades or so. And so, therefore, what we might call the apprehension of worsening ties may actually not come about. What determines the relationship between any two nations is based upon immediate interests. Some of them vital, some of them important, and some of them for that moment, which are required to be pursued. So, in that sense, because the Taliban ruled Afghanistan is contiguous to Pakistan, has a much greater reliance, has always had a great reliance on Pakistan. So when you look at these two factors, you realize that Pakistan is never irrelevant to any nation which may have interest in Afghanistan. So in that sense, the U.S. will find a lot to depend on as far as Pakistan is concerned. So regardless of whether it's Pentagon or the State Department, the government of the United States will have a continuing relationship. Yes, it can see its ups and downs, but more or less it shall be a relationship that is necessitated by times and by the need of ensuring that the two work together in terms of maintaining stability in Afghanistan and ensuring that the kind of elements that you mentioned in your first question, the maleficent ones, for example, intending malice will not find footing in Afghanistan.
Mr. Chaudhary, Pakistan has repeatedly said it has no favorites in Afghanistan, nor will it support a government created as a result of a military takeover of Afghanistan. With the Taliban now saying there is no time for an election, how do you believe Pakistan should approach this situation?
I think it's for the Afghans to decide what kind of elections they want. I mean, elections, the Westminster model, for example, or the American democratic model, or for that matter, so many other models that you might find of democracy around the world. may not apply as a formula in Afghanistan. It is for the Afghan people. They have what is called a loy jirga, which is actually the lower house of the parliament, and that parliament will get together. The loy jirga will get together at some time and endorse the decisions that are put placed before it by the Shura Council of the Taliban, because I believe that is the kind of a structure or organization that they want to retain in Afghanistan for governing Afghanistan. It's probably more or less similar to how they manage in terms of structures, not in terms of policies, but in terms of structures, Afghanistan from 96 to 2001. So if that be so, there will be the voice of the people reflected by the loy jirga. And so if that is what is coming through, that may not exactly be in the way and in the manner that the American model works, or the British model works, or the French model works, or any other democratic model that exists in the world. But yes, it will be a unique model of its own that will perhaps be put in place in Afghanistan. So we really, sitting in Pakistan, we can't decide whether the model that has been that is in use in Afghanistan actually compares or is exactly or mimics what is the Western sense of democracy. Democracy more means participatory decision making, and that is what must come through in Islam through a shura or through a shura mediation or interaction. So that's also a consultative process. And then you have a jirga, which is below that, which is like a parliament, which endorses those decisions. So it is actually more or less essentially a democratic model of working.
Mr. Shehzad Chaudhry, defense analyst, joining us from Islamabad. Thank you very much for joining Indus News. And now moving on, Pakistan says an inclusive political settlement in Afghanistan is the best way forward for peace and stability in the country. Foreign Minister Shah Mehmood Qureshi, during a phone call with his Danish counterpart, said a peaceful Afghanistan is important for peace in the region. Qureshi said the foremost priority is to ensure safety and security, as well as protection of rights of the Afghan people. He said it is equally important for the international community to remain engaged in support of the Afghan people for humanitarian aid. The foreign minister said Pakistan providing full support to the Danish government in its evacuation efforts. The Danish foreign minister thanked the government of Pakistan for the support and agreed to remain in close contact. Pakistan's army chief says that the country has paid a heavy price for instability in Afghanistan, but will continue to play its role for peace and stability in the country. Addressing the Pakistan Military Academy in Kabul, he said that Pakistan has been hosting over 3 million Afghan refugees for more than 4 decades. Speaking on occupied Kashmir, the army chief said that Kashmiris are under the worst military occupation in human history. The army chief said that Pakistan will continue to stand with the Kashmiris and support them in their fight for the right to self-determination. He reiterated that regional peace will remain elusive without a just and peaceful resolution of Kashmir issue. More stories to follow, but right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Indian troops have martyred 2 more civilians in occupied Kashmir's Pulwama district. The youths were targeted during a military operation in the Pampore area. Occupying troops launched a massive operation in different areas of Sopore town and sealed all entry and exit points to the market. They also continued operations in a Thanamandi area of the Rajouri district. Rights groups say the Indian forces have martyred over 400 Kashmiris since August 2019. Malaysia's King has picked Ismail Sabri Yaqub as the nation's new leader. He will be the 9th Prime Minister and the 3rd national leader since the ousting of Najib Razak in the vote 3 years ago. Ismail was the Deputy Prime Minister under the government of Muhyiddin Yassin, who resigned on Monday as infighting in his coalition cost him majority support. It also brings back the rule of the United Malays National Organization Party. The party had led Malaysia since independence in 1957 but was removed in 2018 elections over a multi-billion-dollar financial scandal. The king said Ismail will be sworn in on Saturday. Pakistan is remembering pilot officer Rashid Minhas on his 50th martyrdom anniversary. Minhas is the youngest and only Pakistan Air Force officer to receive the highest Valor Award, Nishan-e-Haider. On the occasion, Pakistan's military paid rich tribute to Minhas's bravery and supreme sacrifice. In a tweet, the ISPR said Minhas lived up to great traditions of PAF defending the motherland. Hailing from Karachi, Minhas was commissioned as a pilot in the Pakistan Air Force in 1971. He crashed his jet when a Bengali instructor pilot, Flight Lieutenant Matiur Rahman, hijacked it. Rahman intended to defect to India along with the jet trainer. In his memory, the Pakistan Air Force base at Kamara was renamed PAF Base Minhas, often called Minhas Kamara. Moving on, Brazil has registered nearly 1,000 daily deaths from COVID-19 and over 36,000 infections. Globally, the fatalities toll has exceeded 4.4 million, while the caseload is over 209 million. More in this report.
Amid the global surge in infections, more countries are opting for lockdowns as well as they seek to speed up their vaccination drives. In the US, record Delta wave affecting kids has raised fear in the country as the schools reopen. The situation is grave in states like Florida and Texas, where Republican governors have barred schools from making students wear masks. Meanwhile, Mexico is battling a new wave as daily cases and deaths hit record highs and the fatalities toll passed 251,000.
Unfortunately, even though people are already vaccinated, they continue to get infected. People don't understand it. They go out without face masks. The saddest thing is that now the children are getting sick. Yesterday, several children infected with COVID-19 were hospitalized.
Over in the Oceania, New Zealand has extended its nationwide lockdown amid the recent surge in infections. Australia reported its biggest single-day rise in the cases as authorities began doling out emergency supplies of the vaccine in Sydney's suburbs. A lockdown in the country's largest city has been extended throughout September alongside tougher measures to curb Delta variant.
So we're doing everything we can. We've thrown everything at this. And now it's time to bunker down. And I can't stress that enough. It is time for all of us to bunker down. Take this as seriously as we can, although so many of us have, the vast majority have. This is it. We do everything we can to reduce case numbers and we do everything we can to get those vaccination rates up.
Japan is planning to ramp up daily COVID-19 tests, borrowing from anti-contagion measures used in the recent Tokyo Olympics. In India, 540 more people died overnight and over 36,000 tested positive. The country's death toll has crossed 433,000 with over 32 million cases.
Pakistan has registered 70 more deaths from coronavirus overnight. The health ministry says the death toll is nearing 24,800. It said more than 3,200 people tested positive for the virus in the past 24 hours. The ministry says the positivity rate of overnight cases was 6.23%. The country's caseload has exceeded 1,116,000, while over 1 million people have recovered. The number of active cases has crossed 89,000, of which nearly 4,900 are critical. Syria says its air defense systems have intercepted several missiles from an Israeli air raid targeting Damascus and Homs regions. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said at least 3 missiles targeted the weapon depots belonging to Hezbollah in the Damascus countryside. It said it is unclear whether the attack caused any casualties. The raids follow a recent flare-up on the Israel-Lebanon border between Hezbollah and the Israeli military. A UN report says 2020 was the deadliest year on record for refugees crossing the Bay of Bengal and Andaman Sea. It said 218 refugees died or went missing at sea. making an already dangerous journey 8 times deadlier than in 2019. The UNHCR urged all states in the region to search for and rescue refugees in distress at sea and allow them to disembark to a place of safety. The Bay of Bengal and Andaman Sea route is used by Rohingya attempting to reach Southeast Asia from the sprawling refugee camps in Bangladesh. In Spain, 37 migrants are feared dead after a dinghy carrying dozens capsized over the coast of the Canary Islands. Spain's maritime rescue services say they have found 2 bodies and rescued a woman. She told authorities there were 40 migrants aboard the boat. The rescue service said there are no signs of any other survivors near the capsized vessel. At least 1,851 people lost their lives last year while attempting the crossing from Africa to Europe. In central Mali, unknown gunmen have killed at least 15 soldiers in Mopti region in an ambush. A car bomb hit a convoy before being followed by a hail of bullets. The army said the vehicle blasted as troops went from the town of Douentza to Boni. In a statement, it said efforts are underway to evacuate the wounded. It is not yet clear who carried out the attack. Malian, French and UN peacekeepers have been battling different terror groups in the Mopti region. In Mexico, the tropical storm Grace has dumped heavy rain on the Caribbean coast just south of the ancient Mayan temples of the town of Tulum. The storm has torn off the roofs of houses and knocked out electricity to thousands. Pushing across the land weakened the storm, but by evening it canted back over the Gulf of Mexico. For hours, families had to seek shelter from cracking trees and flying debris amid winds blowing up to 65 miles per hour and even faster. The U.S. National Hurricane Center says the Category 1 storm is regaining strength as it heads for the Mexican mainland. They said the Grace would dump 4 to 8 inches of rain over through Friday, which could result in flash and urban flooding. In the U.S., dry and windy weather has hindered the efforts to contain destructive fires in Northern California. The blazes have destroyed hundreds of buildings and forced thousands of people to flee. An estimated 1,100 firefighters are struggling to control more than a dozen large wildfires in the area. Over in France, fires in the Var region have scorched over 7,000 hectares of land, forcing several thousand to evacuate. Meanwhile, in Greece, a major wildfire that has ravaged a pine forest for 4 days is on the wane but not yet under control. 461 fighters, 166 vehicles, 4 water-dropping planes and 4 helicopters are fighting the blaze. The fire department said 55 new forest blazes broke out in a day earlier, with most tackled in their initial stages. Scientists say climate change from the burning of coal, oil and natural gas is driving more extreme events. Chinese astronauts aboard the Shenzhou 12 mission have conducted a seconded spacewalk outside the station. China's space agency says the 2 men installed the foot restraints and extravehicular working platform on the mechanical arm. They also lifted a panoramic camera and extended the pump said to prepare for the subsequent expansion of the station. The 3-man crew of the mission are in orbit for 2 months since they arrived at the space station on June the 17th. They will stay there for 1 more month before returning to Earth. American tech giant Tesla has unveiled a humanoid robot called the Tesla Bot. The company's CEO, Elon Musk, says the robot would eliminate dangerous, repetitive and boring tasks now performed by humans. He said it will most likely be launched by the next year. The 5 foot 8 inches robot will weigh 125 pounds and will be built from lightweight materials. It runs on the same artificial intelligence used by the electric automaker's fleet of autonomous vehicles. The unexpected reveal came at the end of the Tesla's AI Day presentation. The Wall Street stocks have rebounded despite concerns over the slowing economic recovery. Strong technology stocks have provided the market with much needed boost. The indices of S&P 500 and Nasdaq Composite traded over 0.5% higher. The Dow Jones Industrial Index was also up by nearly 0.5%. Meanwhile, the oil prices dropped over the spread of the Delta variant. And that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus News.